Jason, the jury found Karen Reed not guilty on murder and manslaughter. Was it because they had reasonable doubt or because they thought she was innocent?
So I think for the jurors, there's a mix of some people think that she was definitely innocent, and the other people there was a lot of reasonable doubt, at least to where we didn't want to convict her.
That's really interesting. So, could you give me a breakdown there? Roughly, what percentage of the jury felt she was innocent?
I mean, I can only speak for myself. I think that she was innocent. It's hard to tell exactly what people think deep down. There was a lot of things thrown at us, evidence. So it's hard to tell what truly.
So you say in your head she was innocent. Does that mean you think she was framed by people inside that house?
It doesn't necessarily mean that. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to John. Really, I was only presented a limited scope of what happened at the night, and I could only base my opinion off of the evidence that was shown in the courtroom. So I don't really know if there was a cover-up or not. I know that's the big conspiracy around it, but I don't really know. All I know is that there was a lot of holes in the investigation. Whether they were deliberate holes or not deliberate holes, it's kind of hard from me sitting back to know that, what actually happened.
So what was the feeling of the jury? Because Alan Jackson and the other lawyers raised the issue that she was framed by cops and that they would have turned that house upside down if they really wanted to do an honest investigation, and that he was not hit by a car. He was attacked in that house, bitten by a dog, and then put outside to frame her. Did people on the jury, or some of them, buy that argument?
I think some of them bought that argument. It's just hard to tell, though, because whether or not we think that there was malicious intent, we were only presented with the facts that they didn't go into the house. So, there's an example of reasonable doubt. So, like, there's other examples of reasonable doubt. So even if you want to completely buy into the theory or not, that wasn't what we were tasked with. We were tasked with finding, convicting, or deciding on this person's fate based on the proof and the evidence that the Commonwealth was able to present. And there was a lot of holes in the investigation.
Yet you went many steps beyond that, because you say, in your view, she was innocent. What compels you to think that?
Well, one thing that I think that compels me is we did a lot of review of the tapes, and it seemed to me that the videos that we could see from the car after the alleged incident happened, that when we could see the taillight, it was lit up red where it shouldn't just have been red. So that leaves to me a conclusion of, well, how come it's red in this video after the alleged, collision happened, and then it's not, it doesn't have any red pieces where it should be red.
So in other words, you do not believe that SUV made contact with John O'Keefe?
I don't believe that the SUV collided with John O'Keefe.
What was the initial vote with the jury when you first took your vote?
We didn't do an initial straw poll. The judge recommended to us in the courtroom that is not a good way to do it. We broke down, what we did is we broke down each charge, and we went from top to bottom and discussed everything thoroughly, and did our best to do right by the Karen Reed and the Commonwealth.
Was there a division initially?
Yeah, there was a division. But that's what we're there to deliberate and talk about all the evidence. There was 2 months of us sitting there, them throwing all this information at us absorbing the information, going home, thinking about it, reviewing it in our heads, and we get to the deliberations, and now we have an opportunity to discuss. Some people went into the deliberations and they were still unsure after two months, and that makes sense, because there was a lot of things going on. There's a lot of information. How much can you weigh one thing or another thing over,
Yeah. What about jurors who felt initially she was guilty? Were there any of them?
Yeah, there were a few jurors that think that had thought that initially when they went into the deliberations, that was their standpoint, and that's what we were there to do, to talk through all that and bring up every single piece of evidence. Is there an angle of reasonable doubt to where we're not really sure? Like, are you really sure? Are you 100%, or are you 99.9%? If you're that 99%, we can't convict you.
What brought the ones who felt she was guilty over to the not guilty side? Was there anything in particular that seemed to resonate with them?
It's hard to tell from my position. You'd have to ask them about it. But in my opinion, I think it was just due to the poor investigation. There's just too many holes, and it's hard to prove that the collision happened. So if there's reasonable doubt that happened, or that there may have been foul play, you know, if there's room for that, then it's hard to come to a guilty verdict.
What happened when the jury initially said they had a verdict and then said, oops, no, we don't, and then 15 minutes later they said, oh, we do? What happened there?
That actually is kind of interesting. So the envelope, it was sealed and it's locked away. It'll never be looked at. But on everything on that initial slip was the same as the slip that was presented.
But why did they pull it back?
The pulling the back was for the OUI charge.
Driving under the influence, essentially, drunk driving.
Yes, driving under the influence. We in our deliberations, we had decided there was enough evidence and proof that she was driving under the influence. And
So, how did the defense do? How did the lawyers do, in your view? Her lawyers.
For her lawyers specifically, I think they all did. I think that all the lawyers on both sides did a really good job. They presented their case as well.
The police, you say the investigation was poor. The defense said it was more than poor, it was corrupt, and they pointed to the lead detective who had been fired, didn't testify in your trial. Did that have an impact? And did you think it was a corrupt police investigation?
Do I think it was a corrupt police investigation? I don't know. There's no way for me to know. I wasn't there. There was just there was holes in the case that left for reasonable doubt. I think they could have checked some boxes or done some things differently. But do I know that they were corrupt? Absolutely not. I don't know that there was any corruption going on. But do I know that there wasn't enough proof or evidence secured by the police to convict Karen Reed? Absolutely not. There was not.
Fair to say that your view was that her SUV did not make contact with O'Keefe, therefore she did not kill him, but you don't know how he died.
I would say that's fair to say. I don't know how John O'Keefe died, and I do not believe that there was a collision between the SUV and John O'Keefe.
Did all of the hoopla around the case, the people outside, did it give you comfort in reaching a verdict like this, that you saw there was a community behind your point of view, or was it irrelevant?
Honestly, that made the pressure a lot harder, and it did not give me comfort. It made it a lot harder to block out everything and come to a decision.
Why did it make it harder?
It made it harder because all of the eyes are on us. We were told we're the most important people in the courtroom, and they keep us away from the crowds of people in the front of the courthouse, but we do see them, and I don't think that having all those people swayed me to go either way. We were only tasked with looking at the evidence. We were 12 jurors. We had to back up how we felt in this, for our decision. And we couldn't let any outside factors, her punishment, we couldn't factor any of that. We had to look at the evidence that was presented to us, absorb it, really understand it, and see if there's any reasonable doubt. And there was.
Do you want to just tell us about the verdict and how you guys came to this conclusion?
Yeah, sure. So it was a very intense week. We are at first, for me, I thought Karen Reed was actually maybe guilty of manslaughter in the beginning, but as the weeks passed by, I just realized there was too many holes that we couldn't fill, and there's nothing that put her on the scene, in our opinion, besides just drop John McCabe off. And the taillight, the injuries in his arm didn't make much sense that come from the taillight for us. The last witness, Arca, from the defense, that made clear, they did a very good job, like showing us, explaining all the technicalities, of everything. And yeah, we couldn't prove there was a collision and she was responsible for John's death.
Are you convinced she wasn't responsible for his death?
I am convinced. I'm 100% convinced. Yes. I really don't think she was responsible for his death. I think she dropped him off. If she back up fast enough to maybe touch him, maybe, but that was not the reason why he fell his back in a way that the way the cut was, the injury was, and the fracture was. I don't think that was from the car, because otherwise we would see much more injuries over his body.
So what do you think happened to him?
It's a theory, like conspiracy theory type of thing, because I think she maybe back up and touch him somehow. Maybe he lost his shoes in this movement and got upset, and then she left and she didn't saw him. And so either he got out of her way or something, and maybe he lost his shoes in this process. But in my opinion, he definitely went inside, and something happened inside the house.
Paula, you were getting emotional. What was going through your heart and mind after making that, tremendous decision?
Yeah, so I was happy for Karen Reed and her family. Of course, I think justice was served, but see John McCabe's family leaving the courthouse was melt my heart. I'm a mother, and I saw her pain through all those days. And I just want to tell them it's not our fault that Karen Reed is not convicted, even if there's any chance she's guilty of something, of hurt him somehow. The Commonwealth and the investigators didn't do their jobs to prove that to us. So we couldn't charge her with anything. And I really, really hope there is a way for the case to be reopened, and they can investigate again and find who actually did that to John.
But you were emotional at the end.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
It was because I was sad for the family, because I feel like great for Karen Reed, but horrible for the family. He seemed to be a very nice guy, the story with his nephews and niece, and was alive. So I feel bad for them, and I really want them to get justice for John McCabe for real.
Was it a poor investigation?
In my opinion, yes. Too many flaws, too many holes that we couldn't fill in. No reports, so many things, videos with glitch. I don't know, felt a little not correct, not precise. I mean, they are police officers, they know what to do in investigation, and with too many pieces were missing.
Paula, you said you were first thinking manslaughter in the beginning. What changed your mind to not guilty?
The process, as they show us that things don't connect to each other, the injuries don't connect with the taillight, the glitch on the video of the sailport, the missing part of the video of the ring light in John McCabe's house was too many coincidences to be, straight her fault.
So the first trial, the jurors were deadlocked. They couldn't come up with a decision. Were you surprised that they brought this case again for a second time? That they prosecuted her for a second time?
No, not surprised, because I have a law background from Brazil. I studied law. I worked a little bit as an attorney before I moved here, so I understand a little bit the system. I'm not surprised she was charged again. And we definitely didn't want to hang this jury. We were very positive that we're going to discuss everything as much as we can, because we don't want to. The amount of money spent on this trial made me very upset, and I'm sure made my fellow jurors upset too.
Do you think she was framed?
Hard to say. I didn't have a chance to look into the investigation outside the courtroom and everything that was said in the last trial. It's less than 24 hours since I started looking into those things. So I can't say she was framed, but maybe, I don't know, I don't know.
Did you find it strange you didn't hear from the lead investigator, Michael Proctor?
No, I didn't find it strange not hear from him, but I found strange not hear from Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, because the owner for the house and the person who exchanged text messages with Karen Reed a few weeks after, a few days before John McCabe's death. So I think was weird not hear from them.
Do you find it weird that the DA hasn't said anything at all about the case or the verdict? I mean, all he said was the jury has spoken, which you guys did, but nothing else.
I was surprised that they wanted the sentencing right away. I'm not sure if they're going to appeal, what's going to happen. And again, I didn't have time to see what happened today through the day because I was out with my family. But I don't know, maybe they're just going to give up and reopen the investigation.
At the beginning of deliberations, did some people think she was guilty?
At the beginning of the deliberation, I don't know. We decided not to vote, not to say what we really think, and instead go through witnesses and the videos and the paper, the clothes and everything. So I'm not sure what they thought. But when we got an agreement of what charges we would eliminate it one by one, and then we got to the verdict.
Was it hard to focus, or, you know, with the pressure of the big crowds outside every day chanting? Like, how much pressure was that for you guys?
I didn't see people outside until, I think Monday, because the way the bus brings us to the back of the courthouse, only if you look to your right and you see maybe some pink shirts or something, but I didn't know it was that big crowd like yesterday. And we couldn't hear anything. They covered the room so we couldn't see through the window. And through the whole process, I didn't hear anything inside the courtroom. None of us did.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like this wasn't that difficult for you guys to reach consensus here. Was it difficult to reach this decision or not really?
Well, I can speak for myself. For me, it wasn't. For me, I had my opinion formed before we get in there. So some people might thought differently, so we had some discussions, of course, but I can't talk for other people.
But it doesn't sound like it was very heated, and were people fighting, or was it?
No, there wasn't fight. We are a respectful group of people. We got along very well, and we listened to each other's opinion. I can't say much what happened inside the deliberation room. The judge told us not to talk about it, but of course, there were discussions of our opinions and the proofs, and let's look into this, look into that, until we got to a consensus. But nothing heated, no.
Did you make much of her the videos that were played of her saying, well, maybe I might have clipped him, her almost admitting that, well, maybe something happened?
Yeah, that's where I take my theory from. Since she woke up thinking, oh, maybe I hit him. So this idea come from somewhere in her mind, right? So maybe when she back up, she hit something, the curb or him or something. I don't know. But definitely his injuries are not consistent with the tail light damage. We do not believe the tail light, the way that was presented in the Sally Port on that day, it's not the same way that we saw in the videos of the car coming out of the Meadows in the morning. I don't think the car killed John McCabe, no.
At what point in the trial did you start to think she was innocent?
Maybe like 3 weeks ago, after, when they had the police lab bringing DNA, they found a little trace of DNA here and there, but they also found 2 males' DNA here and there. So maybe there was more people involved on that. So that's when I started shifting my mind to completely not guilty of killing him at all. And the OUI was the only thing we can deny, because she said on the video she was drinking, and there are videos of her drinking, counting of her drinking. So we couldn't let that pass.
Anything else, Paula? Like, what's your message, or what's the lesson that you learned in this process?
Well, my first time being a juror was an incredible experience, really. I really enjoyed being there. It wasn't a burden at all. The deliberation part for me was a little overwhelmed because of the pressure of having someone's life in your hand. But the crowd outside or influence from outside, none of this came to me, so I was clear my mind, just focus on her and the case and the evidences we have. But for me, it was a great experience, and I'm happy that I feel good about what we did. I'm confident that she's innocent, and I really, really hope the pressure that they had in this case now is transferred to John O'Keefe family, and justice for him, like new investigation, whatever needs to be done.
And joining us now is Paula Prado, one of the jurors who helped decide Karen Reed's fate. Ms. Prado, good morning to you. As I understand it, you're also a lawyer by training in Brazil. So there's a distinction here. Sometimes jurors say, okay, we think she is innocent. And sometimes they say, we think she's not guilty. The prosecutors just didn't prove the case. For you, which one was it? Do you believe that Karen Reed was innocent?
Yes, I do believe she was innocent. I believe if it was a collision, this collision was very little and wasn't enough to cause the death of John O'Keefe. So for me, it was for the past 3 weeks, I was very confident to say that she was not guilty and she's not responsible.
So Paul, if you believe that, if you believe she was in fact innocent, what do you think happened to John O'Keefe that night?
That's a trick question because I can't prove anything. But I do believe he died inside the house. Something may happen in front of the house when she dropped him off, because she woke up saying, maybe I hit him, look at my taillight. She made this connection of the taillight being cracked with he not being home. So maybe she did hit something when she dropped him off, and as she drove off like mad, going home upset because he didn't came back from the house, I think John O'Keefe went inside the house and something happening there.
What do you think of the defendant herself? You were able to watch her live in the courtroom day after day, but she did not take this stand. Do you wish she had? And what was your impression of her?
Yeah, at first my impression was she gave me a vibe of being too confident, and that wasn't good for me personally. I expected to see someone more, I don't know, sad or quiet, and she all the time showed herself with she was very calm, she was very participative of her defense, and confident, her looks to the witnesses and to the prosecutor and everybody around. She was very focused on the trial and very alert of everything that was going on. And after a while, I admire that. I think she was doing what she had to do for herself. She was, fighting for her life, pretty much.
Paula, there was so much evidence presented over the few weeks that this trial went on. Was there a single piece of evidence that you found as a juror and as an attorney, a single piece of evidence that was the most compelling, that really convinced you she did not do it?
The taillight. So having a close look at the taillight in the deliberation room, they gave us the piece that was originally broken. That taillight, compared with the videos of Karen Reed leaving the house in the morning at 7:07, I think, when she first got out of the house to go look for him, I saw it, and most of us, I think, saw it like her taillight was red, mostly red, so it wasn't compatible with the taillight fully broken that we had in front of us. So that's over there was the reasonable doubt we were looking for.
What about the fact that this trial is so high profile? I mean, there were crowds outside the courthouse every day. In fact, when the verdict was read, you could hear from inside the courtroom, as I'm sure you did, the cheers go up. Were you aware of that? Did that weigh into any of your decision making? How did that play into the dynamic there?
The first time we heard something outside was on the day of the verdict, when we heard them chanting when we said not guilty. Before that, as we drive to the courthouse, the bus would drop us off behind the courthouse and the streets were closed. So honestly, we couldn't see anything or hear anything. And in the courthouse, inside the deliberation room, they covered everything, the windows, so we didn't have a view from outside. Honestly, we knew there were some people there because as we drive around, we see some people in pink, and we imagined that there was some movement inside the courthouse. Outside the courthouse, but we couldn't hear anything. And I had no clue the amount of people that were outside until I come out and watched on the TV last Friday.
Paula, you were visibly.
Last Friday, no, sorry, last Wednesday.
We knew what you meant, but Paula, you were visibly emotional as you left the courtroom. You were in tears. Well, why? Why were you so emotional as you left?
Because I'm a mother, and I've been watching his family over this past 2 months, and I know I can't imagine what they're going through. And as much as I'm confident that we did the right thing and she's not guilty, I feel sorry that justice wasn't served to John O'Keefe and John O'Keefe's family. And it's the reason why I'm coming out and talking to people is to keep the flame going and the supporters going after the DA or whatever they have to do to reopen the case and find who really killed John O'Keefe.
Do you have a theory about that?
I believe, as I said, that he died inside and something happened inside that maybe he could even like accidentally fall and hit his head back. Maybe a little fight went inside because we saw videos on last bar they were where him and Brian Higgins were like making gestures that they would talk after. So I can't say for real, but I believe something happened inside the house.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
okay.
Very interesting. Paula, to have your perspective, thank you. And jury service is not easy, so I'm sure the judge thanked you, but it is appreciated. Thank you.
Her perspective especially unique, considering, as you pointed out, her background. I mean, a lawyer herself in Brazil. So
very, very interesting. And a lot of people have said, you know, however you come down on this trial, perhaps the investigation should have been more complete, and perhaps it will continue. We shall see.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Tonight, we're hearing from a juror on the Karen Read trial, which gained national attention. You'll remember earlier this week, she was found not guilty of killing her police officer boyfriend.
And test, defendant not guilty or guilty? Not guilty. So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you all?
You can hear those cheers which erupted outside as Reed left. Supporters had stood outside the courtroom every day of the trial. Joining us now is juror number 11, Paula Prado. Paula, how did your opinion of Karen Read change throughout the trial?
At first, I thought her demeanor in court was a little bit too calm and composed for someone who was being charged for murder, especially for a loved one. But I learned how to admire actually that behavior. She was very participative on her own defense and helping each other and calm. I think her confidence was because she knew she wasn't guilty, and that helps me to change this prejudgment I have of her.
So you changed from thinking she was guilty to thinking not guilty?
Not just because of her behavior, of course, because of the whole trial itself and the evidence presented to us. Had too many holes, and we couldn't connect taillights to John O'Keefe injuries. We felt that was something else that could have pushed him to hit his head so hard that he had a skull fracture. And we definitely believe that if he was hit by a car at 24 miles per hour, we would find more injuries on his body.
Now, Paula, I know you work as an attorney in Brazil as well, and you've presented cases. Which side really solidified your position, the defense or the prosecution?
I honestly pay more attention in the prosecution witnesses and the case they presented, because I needed to see what they have to prove me that she was guilty. And of course, when the defense started bringing their witnesses, I already kind of had my mindset that Karen Read wasn't guilty. So the defense witnesses just came in to top it off and make me more sure and certain that she wasn't responsible for John's death.
And what were the pieces of evidence presented from either side, really, that pushed you to find her not guilty, or at least raise enough reasonable doubt?
Definitely the tail light. We had the opportunity to check the tail light from inside the deliberation room. So we had the broken tail light, the original one. We also had the a new one to compare, and we had videos of Karen Reed getting out of the house in that morning at 5:07, 5 a.m. And we saw her car lighting. The red was way too strong and way more spread out, as if her tail light wasn't broke that much. The pieces that were missing were too much for us to be able to see the red light.
Take us inside the jury room. Was there a lot of back and forth with the verdict with other jurors, or was it everyone on the same page?
No, we definitely, at first we started deliberating on Friday, so everything was new. Everybody wanted to just talk one over another. But on Monday, we start being more organized, and there were different opinions. But we are very respectful. We listen to everybody. I think everybody left the deliberation room confident and certain of our decision. We listened to everyone. We answered all the questions we had. We compare our notes to see if we got anything wrong or right, who has this information, who haven't. And I think we did a great job. We were respectful. We tried very hard to listen to everyone.
Now, the defense's allegations of a cover-up, I wonder if you think the jurors felt that could be true, or if that held a lot of water for you.
It could be true. It could also not be true. The same way I can't charge Karen Reed with murder, I can't say there was a cover-up because I didn't see evidence for it. I saw holes and I saw a flop investigation, and I think the prosecution they worked what they had. The investigation was poorly from the beginning. No reports, no time, no videos that were missing. They could be covering for someone, of course, but also could be something else.
And what was your reaction when the verdict was read and you saw the reactions inside and outside the courtroom?
My reaction was cry. I was the juror who left court crying because I felt sad for John O'Keefe's family as they were leaving before everybody else, and of course frustrated and upset. I'm happy for Karen Reed and her family so they can move on, but definitely John O'Keefe's family didn't get the justice they deserve.
A lot of emotions inside and outside the courtroom. Paula Prado, thank you so much for your time.
Ben, good evening. Unlike the first two jurors that we've heard from who rendered their verdict of not guilty for Karen Reed, this one, juror number 12, says during those 20 hours of deliberations, she changed her mind.
I felt like if they didn't pick me, they'd be fools because I didn't know anything about this case.
Personal trainer Janet Jimenez says before this second trial of Karen Reed, one of her clients had mentioned the case, but she says other than that, she'd never heard of it. When she was picked to be juror number 12, she suddenly had a front row seat.
I couldn't help but see her because I was right. I mean, I think I had the best view in the house. She was right there. The defense was right there.
Did you form any impressions of her?
No. Like I said, I knew nothing about her.
Jimenez says she filled a notebook and a half as she listened to witnesses and studied evidence over 8 weeks. She says when it came time for deliberations, she was open to listening to what the other 11 jurors had to say.
I was hoping that my fellow jurors could help me to go through all of this. So I went in with a very open mind, but definitely leaning toward that she was guilty.
Jimenez says what changed her mind is when she went looking for something in the more than 200 pieces of evidence. She won't say what that something was, but says she didn't find it.
And it was one big part that led me closer to there's a lot of doubt here.
Jimenez says there were holes in the investigation, but she stopped short of saying she believes someone else killed John O'Keefe or that there was a police cover-up.
I'm not there to say the defense's story was right or wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? Because there could have been other circumstances that happened. So I think there was things that we saw, things that we heard, the evidence that could have fit that scenario. So again, that's the whole doubt thing.
Jimenez says there is one part of the defense story that she did not buy, what that was and what she thought about the crowds outside, coming up tonight at 6. Live in Medfield, David Beanick, WCVB News Center 5. And good evening. Just like the first two jurors who've gone public since the verdict was rendered, and this one says that she found way too many holes in the police investigation to convict Karen Reed. But she says going into the deliberations room, she didn't feel that way.
Just seemed like it was in the stars that I was going to get picked for this.
Personal trainer Janet Jimenez says going into jury selection for Karen Reed's second trial, she knew it was likely she'd be picked because she says she knew almost nothing about the case.
It's very interesting. I found it fascinating.
Jimenez says she filled a notebook and a half as she listened to witnesses and studied evidence over 8 weeks. She says when it came time for deliberations, she was opening to listening to what the other 11 jurors had to say.
I was hoping that my fellow jurors could help me to go through all of this. So I went in with a very open mind, but definitely leaning toward that she was guilty.
Jimenez says she did not believe the defense's story about a Google search for hypothermia done hours before John O'Keefe's body was found. She found lead investigator Michael Proctor's text messages about Reed crude, but not necessarily proof of a cover-up.
Do you think he planted evidence or tampered with the investigation?
I can't determine that.
Jimenez says what changed her mind is when she went looking for something in the more than 200 pieces of evidence. She won't say what that something was, but says she didn't find it.
And it was one big part that led me closer to there's a lot of doubt here.
Jimenez says she was aware the court officers were trying to keep them away from the crowds outside. She says since the trial has ended, she's learned a few things she finds interesting, but nothing, she says, that makes her regret the jury's decision.
I don't want to be like, oh, should I second guess myself? Because I'm very comfortable with how I came to the decision. So I guess it'll be part of my story.
And for the first time tonight, this juror is shedding light on an incident that happened during the 5th week of the trial when 2 jurors had to switch seats in the jury box. She says that is simply because one of them was having trouble hearing.
The ages, never seen anything like it. Okay, it is time. I am joined by Paula Prado, one of the 12 jurors in the Karen Reed retrial of this century. Paula, thank you so much for joining us tonight. First of all, are you feeling okay? This has been a lot. This has been a long process. You feeling okay tonight?
Yeah, it's just a bit tired with everything that has been going on, especially today, but I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so we appreciate that. Let me ask you, first of all, not guilty or factually innocent? In your mind tonight, not guilty meaning prosecutors didn't prove it. That's the standard in our courtrooms, we understand. Do you believe that she was just not proven guilty, or do you believe she was factually innocent, meaning you are convinced she had nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe?
Not guilty and innocent. In my personal opinion, she is innocent. I can't see his death being caused by a collision. I'm not sure if a collision happened. I've mentioned before that maybe she touched him, maybe she backed up a little fast and hit a curb or got too close to him and he had to step away or something. But I don't think her car pushed John O'Keefe to death, that pushed him away and made him hit his head on the floor and kill him. So not guilty and innocent.
And you just mentioned one potential theory there. Is that what you think may have happened here to John O'Keefe? What are your thoughts about how John O'Keefe could have ended up dead on the yard of 34 Fairview?
Yeah, again, it's a theory. The same way I couldn't prove that Karen Reed was guilty, I can't prove what happened inside that house, what happened that night. But I do believe that because of the amount of alcohol both of them had, John O'Keefe had more to drink than Karen. Maybe when he left the car, she could back up too fast and touch him, and that could be an explanation for him to lose his shoes or for his phone to fall down and get in pocket state, which was something that the data showed us. But in my opinion, he got up and he went inside the house with or without shoes. I don't know when he lost his shoes eventually, but I don't think he died outside. I think something happened inside the house and he was placed outside.
And do you have because it's not clear, and the defense was talking about the garage. In the first trial, they talked about the basement. Do you have any idea where in the house he may have gone, and why do you think that?
Assuming that a lot of the witnesses that was in the house that night didn't see him, all the Brian, his friends, the people who are celebrating his birthday, assuming that none of them saw him, so maybe he went inside the house through the garage. And during trial, there was a moment with a picture of the garage that was hidden from us. We had to leave the courtroom and then come back, and we don't know why the garage door has to be blurred for us. I don't know why we can see pictures from inside the garage or having an idea how the inside the garage look. But I remember in one of the witnesses, the last one, Dr. La Posada, she mentioned that he saw pictures of a real estate agency of the garage inside, but was objected, and we didn't hear from her what was inside the garage. But raised doubts, raised questions.
So just the fact that there was a question about it. So what was your interpretation of why you weren't allowed to see it? Like, what's the impact of that on you? That's something I'm always very curious about, when there's a piece of evidence that one side wants in, and then all of a sudden you're not allowed to see it. What did you take away from that?
It becomes suspicious. If there is something over there that the Commonwealth didn't want us to see, it's because it could be something beneficial to Karen Read. And what could be beneficial for Karen Read regarding a garage door or a picture of inside the garage coming from a real estate? I don't know, but I think that was a question for a lot of us.
Fascinating. How quickly did the entire jury agree that there wasn't a collision?
I cannot count Friday as a day we actually start deliberating. On Friday was just more as everybody just want to talk, because we've been silent about this case for so long. And we really want to just put it out, our impressions, what we think about the trial, this evidence, X, Y, and Z. So it was very chaotic. But Monday, we start to be more organized and checking the witnesses and checking our notebooks, what one juror had written, what I did, and what other did. So we can check facts and see and remember everything that we heard and saw it. There were people who didn't believe Karen Read killed him, and there was also, I would say, 30% that was like in the fence, and there were two people who think she was guilty, and we had to talk through it.
And how long did it take to talk through it for everyone to agree that, hey, this wasn't a collision, now we've got to talk about the operating under the influence charge?
The next 3 days, pretty much.
Okay,
whole Monday, whole Tuesday, we are going through it.
Okay. I didn't know if you had reached it on one and then we're just focused on the other, but it was a continuing conversation. Let me ask you, do you have any idea what was going on outside?
No, and it's bothering me that some people think we are influenced by the Karen Read supporters, that we are hearing them and we felt pressure or something. We couldn't hear anything. We didn't see them in the courthouse because the bus always dropped us off in the back of the courthouse, and the streets were closed, police were protecting us, the people from the court, the security guards, they were all protecting us. So no way we couldn't see what was happening in front of the court. Sometimes we would drive by and see a pink shirt here and there, but that was it. Not that big crowd. And we couldn't hear. Bottom line, we couldn't hear.
Okay, let's get into some of the evidence here. What was the most important piece of evidence for you? Physical evidence, whether it's a video or something tangible. What was the most important piece that helped you understand what happened?
The piece of tail light definitely was very important to me. Seeing the broke tail light compared to a new one, comparing to his shirts, comparing to the little pieces. So putting everything together around the tail light was very important. And the holes on John O'Keefe's hoodie, it didn't feel like something coming from the plastic of the tail light, the shape of the holes. So that raised suspicion to me and reasonable doubt. His arm injuries, for sure. Seeing close-up pictures of his arms and the autopsy pictures in general, looking for more injuries, more evidence of a collision from a car at 24 miles per hour. And I couldn't see it, and none of us could.
That's interesting. right? I said, what's the most important piece of evidence? And you pointed out a couple things, but there's also a lack of evidence, which is significant as well. Who was the most important witness?
The medical examiners were very important. The engineers from ARCA, to me, were very important. But also the witness who didn't behave as we expected. Their demeanor in the court, in the stand, they were nervous, they would not answer directly. So we observed that too. So most important witness for me was ARCA, both of the engineers who came, but also observe Officer Dever and Officer Buchanan and how they interact with the lawyers in court. That also was very important to me.
Did you feel at any point during this trial that anyone was misleading you or trying to mislead you, whether it's one of the lawyers or one of the witnesses?
Every day, I think that's something that we comment in the deliberation room, that we felt lied from everyone, everywhere. Like some moments, I know attorneys, they needed to make the drama and point out things and say things that they know they're not supposed to say, but they try to put it out there so we can think about it. I felt some witnesses hide information. Not sure if they lied on stand, but hide information for sure. And the lawyers were they're doing their jobs. They are just trying to lead us in the direction that was convenient to them.
Okay, I get the part with the lawyers. From the witnesses, which witnesses did you feel were trying to hide something from you?
I think Jen McCabe was. I think O'Hara, Officer O'Hara, don't remember his first name. He was shaking. He was very, very nervous during the trial. I'm not sure about the name, but I think Officer Keefe, too. Buchanan, he seems to be very uncomfortable, and something he said didn't seem believable.
Now, was there any witness that you wanted to hear from that did not testify in the trial? Because there were a lot of names talked about during the course of the trial, but not all of them testified. Was there anyone that you wanted to hear from that neither side called to the witness stand?
Definitely, I would really want to hear from Brian Higgins and Brian Albert or Nicole Albert. It was a surprise to all of us that none of them were come to the stand. I didn't know their faces, I just heard their names. I didn't even know who Michael Proctor was until I learned through trial that he was a former officer, so he was fired. But because he was fired and so many people brought his investigation to the spotlight, I think I didn't need to see him, but I really want to see Higgins and Albert.
And what did you want to hear them talk about?
Please, what Brian Higgins was doing in the middle of the night, on the 29th of January 2022 in the Canton Police Department. And really, Brian Alberts and Nicole, you guys didn't hear, didn't see, didn't notice, felt what was going on outside? Those big question marks.
Okay, imagine that Karen Reed is with you in a room. What questions do you have for Karen Reed?
How can you be so calm all the time? Honestly, that's shocking to me. First of all, I'm sorry that she went through this whole thing, and I want to hear from her, like, how she maintained herself so calm and so present and so participative in the whole trial, how she maintained herself so firm all the time, honestly.
Do you have any questions of her about what happened that night?
I think she said enough about what happened, and if I had a chance to talk to her, I wouldn't go on this subject at all. I want to know about her, I want to learn about her, her personality, her likes, her life, whatever, what she has to say to teach, to show us something for the future. I wouldn't ask about the past. That was draining for everybody, and imagine it for her, for O'Keefe's family. What happened that night was presented to us in court. She said many times on television, there is docuseries, there is documentary, there is interviews. I can find that online, no problem.
How about the investigators? what questions do you have for the men and women who were investigating this case?
Why? Why no report? Why the investigation seems so sloppy? Why you guys didn't ask for ring camera of the neighbors? Why you didn't call the owners of the house? Why the video on the Sally Port record inverted? Why you didn't collect evidence right away and left in the floor of a hospital and didn't secure evidence once it was in the police department? So many questions. Yeah. All the holes that we found in the investigation, I want to ask.
You mentioned so many questions. I have so many more questions. And Paula Prado, juror number 11, is going to stay with us. We really appreciate it. I know she's tired, but she's being a good trooper tonight and helping us out. All right, folks, so when we come back, more of our interview plus coming up next hour. A lot of evidence in this case from both sides. Let's talk about it. Still here with me is Paula Prado. She's one of the 12 jurors from the retrial of the century of Karen Reed. Okay, Paula, first of all, everyone's wondering, you are wearing pink tonight. Is that on purpose? Is there a meaning to it? Or is it just one of your colors that you love?
It's a color that I love. In fact, I stopped wearing pink mid-trial. I had a lot of pink shirts, and once I heard that was part of her supporters, I don't want to give a wrong message, so I stopped wearing them. So just like a light baby pink, has nothing to do with my support.
Okay. You and me both. I have a whole bunch of pink ties I haven't worn, a whole bunch of blue ties that I haven't worn for months now. Okay, let's talk about the tail light and the tail light pieces. How do you believe the tail light pieces ended up at 34 Fairview, scattered near the place where John O'Keefe's body was found?
The theory I have, like, if she back up and maybe hit something, a curb or him, or some people in the jury raised the question, maybe he was mad and he could have thrown the glass on the tail light and break it. Another thing, the tail light was found 5:45, but there wasn't a report. The evidence bag didn't say the time, and the car was retrieved and was parked in the sale port at 5:36, if I'm not wrong. And it's very close. The 34 Fairview and the police department is very close. It was time enough for someone to just show up and drop a piece of taillight at the scene.
So you believe that's a reasonable possibility that someone could have planted the evidence?
Yes, I think it's a possibility. I also think could be because she bumped something, or even him, but lightly, not enough to kill him, throw him away, and he hit his head and died.
Okay, I'm going to show you some images. We put them up there in a second. These are the images from the closing argument of the Commonwealth. When you look at these images of the taillight, this is 5:07. This is after Karen Reed leaves 34 Fairview, but before state troopers take custody of her SUV. Do you believe these show the right taillight broken to the extent that the Commonwealth says it was broken?
Absolutely not. There is like a white stain. It could be a crack, it could be a small piece out, but not that big damage that they showed us after the car was on the sale port.
So I just want to make this clear. You believe that the images that we're looking at right here, inconsistent with the final photo that was in evidence of the total damage that the Commonwealth alleged was caused by Karen Reed striking and killing John O'Keefe?
Correct. And we also heard from Officer Barrows. He said that what he saw in Karen Reed's parents' house wasn't consistent with the final picture neither, so we listened to him as well.
Do you believe that there were small red shards of that taillight in John O'Keefe's clothing? Hank Brennan, the prosecutor, talked a lot about that. Do you believe they were there? And if so, how did they get there?
The pieces were so tiny, so from from all the big pieces they said they found on the 34th review, that tiny dust of tail light to the stop on his shirt, I don't know, it doesn't seem credible.
Okay, let me ask you about...
And also the lab, the state lab didn't say from where. She took this from exactly where on his clothes this debris were found.
Let me move on to the experts now. There was a battle of experts in this case. A lot of money was spent on these experts. What did you think of what we're calling the blue paint experiment that was done by Aperture, the accident reconstruction experts for the Commonwealth?
I think that their evidence wasn't good enough compared to what ARCA presented to us. That seems very unprofessional. What he was trying to prove with the blue paint was the place that the car could hit him without considering speed, without considering his size, weight. They are not the same size, they are not the same weight. The dummy wasn't either, but he has a human arm, so it's not like a dummy arm, and hit himself at 2 miles an hour is way different than 24 miles an hour. I smirk a little bit when I start seeing this video in court, because it was unbelievable that they pay so much money for someone to show this, just that presentation.
So I guess from your perspective, we always talk about the battle of the experts was clearly won from your perspective by the ARCA experts.
Yes, the ARCA experts did a way better job than Dr. Welcher did. I won't say Dr. Welcher intended to lead us to certain directions. He was, in his head, probably he was doing what he was asked for. He was proving that the tail light could reach John O'Keefe's arm, but we call it the preschool project.
A preschool
It didn't convince us of anything.
Okay.
Yes.
So the injuries on John O'Keefe's arm, he did have some injuries, right? I understand that you thought there should be more, but the injuries that he did have, how do you believe he got those injuries?
I believe in a dog theory. I know we didn't talk much about the dog in court, and we also didn't talk about the dog during deliberation because it wasn't presented to us much information about the dog. But as soon as I saw that picture, to me sounds like paws scratching and bites of dogs close to his elbow. I couldn't shake it off, this impression that it was a dog.
And what were your thoughts of the allegations that Jennifer McCabe, searched How Long to Die in the Cold at 2:27 a.m.? Do you believe that she did?
No, that's something the Commonwealth, I think, proved that she didn't. They did well on that one. The explanation that I think Dr. Whiffen gave about the first tab that you opened, and then if you're going to search something in the same tab later, it's going to register the time you open the tab. That was reasonable. I think most of the jurors believe in that. We didn't question that search in the middle of the night.
Okay, Paula Prado, Juror 11. She's staying with us. We're going to take another short break. When we come back, more questions and, more important, more answers from juror number 11. We got Paula Prado with us. She was juror number 11 in this case and is really giving us incredible insight tonight. Again, thank you so much. What do you think of Karen Reed? Like, what's your opinion of her? What do you think of her as a person, as a human?
My first impression of her wasn't that good. I had this first prejudgment because she was very calm all the time. She didn't show any emotion, no tears. I'm a Latina woman, so I would expect someone to be crying and making a scene or something when you're being charged for murder. So I did have this prejudgment of her, but I know nothing about her life. I don't know what she did before. I think they said she was a professor in a college or worked in finance. I really don't know anything about her, but I learned how to admire her, and I think she would be a great lawyer if she's looking for a new career path, because she was very present and very sharp on her trial. She knew things, she pointed out things, she remembered things. I think she was a great help to the lawyers, and I admire her for that.
Yeah, her lawyers have said the same. What do you think of Judge Cannoni?
Judge Cannoni, she was pleasant to us, very kind. She made sure we are comfortable. We had our needs met. She was flexible because sometimes we had our lives and we have commitments that we couldn't cancel. So some people were asking, oh, this day the jury they left early. Why? Judge Cannoni doesn't want to work. No, guys, sometimes we just have appointments in a life. A juror has something to do that they can't cancel. It happens. And she was flexible to accommodate our needs. She was open to explain what we need when we were in the deliberation room with the questions. I have no complaints about Judge Cannoni.
And did you get the feeling that she was favoring one side or the other? Or did you get any sort of vibe that she wanted one side to win and not the other?
I'm avoiding the word favored because I can't say. I felt there was more objections being allowed in the defense witness. So Alan Jackson, I think he was the lawyer, he would object to something and she will allow all the time for Brennan. And the opposite happened when was Jackson objecting, and she would, I'm sorry, I'm saying the opposite. So when Jackson objected, she would allow, and when Brennan objected, she would sustained. So there was a moment, there was some witnesses that was hard to follow because there was so many objections from Mr. Brennan, and she was just allowing all of them.
Now there were
sustaining all of them. I'm sorry, I'm so confused.
No, that's okay. It's that way for everyone. But I get what you're saying, and what you're saying is, when the defense wanted something, it seemed like they didn't get what they wanted. When the prosecution wanted something, they seemed to get what they wanted a little more often, and that happens a lot.
Exactly. I couldn't use better words. Yes, that's what I meant. Thank you.
Okay. Who was the most effective lawyer in the courtroom? And for folks who don't know, you're a licensed lawyer in Brazil, and so you have a great background in all this. So from your perspective, this I think is really valuable. Who did you feel was the most persuasive, the most effective lawyer in that courtroom?
Persuasive, I'm going to give to Alan Jackson. The way he presents himself, the way his voice, his presence in court is incredible. So he's looking in the eyes and he will convince you and show you like his story perfectly. The lawyer I liked the most was Alessi, Mr. Alessi. I just think he was so knowledgeable, and all the technical witnesses that he had to cross and direct, and it was incredible to watch their work. Mr. Brendan, I think he did great crossing examining, much more than he did direct examining, so that was interesting.
Yes.
And then I think I heard he's a defense lawyer.
Right, he really is. He was a prosecutor. He's been a defense attorney for many years, and now he came in as a special prosecutor just for this case. What is your message for John O'Keefe's family?
Oh, the reason why I want to come out and speak to the press was because I want the family to know that we feel very sorry for their loss. I truly believe John was a great man. I believe he was a great uncle, son, brother, and his death was absolutely unnecessary. I don't know what happened to him. Nobody knows what really happened that night. But I truly believe that wasn't Karen Reed, and for that reason we couldn't convict her. And please, I really hope you can reopen the case, the family can reopen the case somehow. I don't know how the system working very well. And they can find really what happened to John O'Keefe that night.
Let me ask you this. After this case, it's only been a couple days. So you watch this entire trial, you hear all the evidence, you deliberate for days, you return the verdict, you're done. Have you taken any time to research and find out some of the things that weren't permitted in front of you as jurors, to find out more about the story, more about the history, et cetera, of what happened here? Did you do that after the trial at all?
I didn't much. One thing I did, like after the verdict, we went to the deliberation room and I download an X account and I start to follow all the journalists who were there, because I know news go on this platform. I'm not very active on social media in general, but I wanted to go up there and see what they were talking about. But I read much more people's opinion and the news from the trial itself than about what happened on the first trial. But I really want to I really want to watch the first trial. I want to watch the documentary. I want to go on YouTube. I saw some YouTube videos of lawyers commenting on the case. But I didn't have time to check anything deeply serious, honestly.
Interesting. Do you know about TurtleBoy?
TurtleBoy, now I know. So TurtleBoy, when I moved to Massachusetts last year, I passed by some billboards, free cut and read, which I didn't know what means. And I also saw some billboard or some loud signs saying free TurtleBoy. One time I remember driving through that and I saw a protest, free TurtleBoy. And I remember clearly thinking that's an environmental issue. That's someone maybe fighting for, I know, marine turtles. I really had no clue who he was. And during trial, we heard about a blogger, and then now on deliberation, some jurors comment that this blogger was in court, and then one thing leads to another. Now I know who TurtleBoy is.
Okay. Now, here's a question I ask every juror after a trial. It should be really interesting because you understand another system of justice from where you practice down in Brazil. But what can our system of justice do better? And whether it's do better and to help jurors and to just help get to the truth. What can we do better?
Very hard question for me because up to now I wasn't involved with the legal system here at all. My first time was just my first time hearing, understanding, learning some legal terms that I didn't know in English before was during this trial, and I think it worked great. This juror system, we don't have, it's a bit different than in Brazil, but we represent the society, we represented what the community wanted, I believe, and I can't say what I would like to change, a suggestion I have for the system right now, because again, like I said, I don't practice law here, and for me, everything was very new. The legal system is new to me. I want to learn more, I'm excited now to learn more, but this trial, what stands up to me was the investigation. The investigation was floppy. The system itself, I mean, I have no criticism.
Well, Paula, this has been amazing, getting this insight from you. I know you're exhausted, and we thank you so much. The folks who are watching at home, thank you as well. They've been so invested in this case, and we saw what happened, you know, inside the courtroom, but now we understand much better how you got to that decision. Can you do me one favor? Because I know you've got 4 kids who miss their mom so much. For all of us at CourtTV, give them a big, big hug tonight when you get back.
I will. Thank you so much. I'm happy I was part of the process. I'm happy I'm having the opportunity to talk about it, to, help people understand what was going on for us. And I really would like to ask people to look for reliable sources of news and what really happened. There is a lot of fake news, a lot of silly stuff going out there. So if you guys really care about John O'Keefe, let's focus and get justice for him.
Thank you so much. Paula Prado, juror number 11. Jackson, he is a close friend of John O'Keefe. They were good friends since college. I can understand this can't be easy, but I need you to help us understand what it's like from the other side. That story hasn't been told enough. How are you personally handling what transpired and the verdict in this case?
That's the lead-in. That's the lead-in to this. That's the footage of the lead-in to this. Vinny, we saw you out there. We saw you with your pink tie. We saw you just bathing in the sea of pink.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Didn't wear a pink tie, John. Didn't wear a pink tie,
John. You hold it up. You held it up, right?
No, I didn't. I held up a red tie, John. If you've watched me, if you've watched my career, so every verdict I wear a red tie. So I switched from the purple. From the purple.
The career is interesting.
Okay, this is the way it's going to go. Let's go.
The career is fantastic. The career is fantastic. Look, up until this case, we all watched you. We all did. We all watched, you know, any case that had any kind of interest to us, we watched. But I just watched that interview with that juror. Well, I was here to talk about something completely different. And it's unfortunate because...
Okay, let's talk about whatever you want to talk about, John. I'll give you an opportunity. It's not a problem.
I can't believe what I just heard from that. I mean, I just watched the show, so I can't believe what I just heard that juror say. So many things. I mean, I just went over it. I couldn't believe what I was listening to. It believes the dog bite theory, but they didn't really present it at trial. Those are her words. Barros, she talked about Officer Barros. She apparently missed the cross-examination, although she did hat tip to Mr. Hank Brennan for his cross-examinations. But hey, look, I'd love to talk about Johnny.
John, let me give you an opportunity. You could talk about whatever you want. As a guest on this show, you can talk about whatever you want right now. You've got the microphone. We've got the camera. You have a question for me. If you want to talk about the juror, the way she saw the case, that's fine. You've answered my question that I have already. I sense that you are absolutely livid. You're unhappy. There's a sense of anger. So my question's answered.
Yeah.
I'll give you an opportunity to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So let me just run through it. Okay, it's been a couple days. So the first couple days, you know, obviously we were all together when the verdict came out, and it was rough, man. It was you know, you sat through the whole case and you watch everything come and go, all the evidence come and go, and look, to us, the prosecution put on a good case, and to us, that data from her car and from Johnny's cell phone told the whole story. Right, so we're not hearing too much about that right now from these jurors. I'm a little surprised. Look, I came out that night. I said, look, we respect the jury's decision. I mean, that's how it is, and it's okay. That's the process. I'm to be honest, I'm stunned at what I just saw. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I wasn't really there until I just saw that interview, and it kind of put me there. It is literally like the social media side of this and the blogging side of this and the LawTuber side of this just came out of that juror's mouth. I'm actually stunned. I was calm. I wasn't here, but I can't believe I just heard it. It kind of put me in a position, and I'm sorry. Didn't mean to start off that way.
Hey, John,
the video.
Your emotions are real. You're entitled to your emotions.
Of course they are.
This is an incredible loss. And I've seen cases of not guilties before. I know it can be crushing. I know it can create anger. And I just want to hear it. I want to hear your side of this. So hearing what we heard from juror number 11 tonight and the way things went down, where do you point blame anywhere for why this result came out, a result that you don't believe in at all?
Yeah, so obviously, there's a couple places we'd like to put some blame, but let me start off again. We respect the process, right? If the process is fair, if there's no you know, fingers on the scale, we respect the process, and the jurors spoke, so that's it, right? I mean, we understand that's it, but you know, what we don't appreciate is the narrative that got away from us pretty early was a false narrative. So, you know, trial 1, trial 2, both of them, in the, you know, the popularity of the movement grew, and as the movement grew, it drew in more and more media types, traditional media, new media, drew them all in, and they went and chased the clicks, and they chased the likes, and they chased the popularity, which is fine. That's what they do. But what we feel is that at some point, I mean, look outside that courthouse, right? The family heard the cheers. Brother, friend, son. They heard the cheers, and it was devastating, right? So the media needs to take responsibility for their part in this. I'm not saying it was totally there, but for their part in this, for allowing themselves to choose sides, for allowing themselves to be part of the fuel for that fire that caught and wound up outside of that courthouse. So yeah, some of the blame goes there.
So let's
go ahead.
No, continue. I don't want to cut you off. I thought you were done. Continue.
Look, so the problem is for us too. We've lived this for 3.5 years, and we've every piece of evidence that came in, both sides. We can be objective about it and say when things went poorly for us and when things went well for us, and it just, even when things went well for us. Again, Juror 11 here. Look, Ms. Hank Brennan, Adam Lally, Attorney McLaughlin, they put on a good case, and it's unfortunate because I'm looking now. This doesn't look like it ever had a chance. It doesn't. A couple of other jurors I've spoken to, and I wasn't going to go there with this, but I can't even. Literally raw emotions are coming out here, so that's not where I wanted to go tonight. I wanted to be calm and talk about Johnny and the pain that this family is definitely experiencing.
So, yeah, and we've heard from other jurors that are speaking. Do you at all look at the investigation itself, the way things were handled that night? Sure. I know there was a nor'easter coming in. I know that is difficult, but it's Massachusetts, not securing the scene, other things that were pointed out to the jury, because they kept saying to me, not just this juror, but other jurors, holes in the investigation. There were holes in the investigation.
Sure. I can address that, sure. So again, me personally, I'm not speaking for anybody else here, but I will say that, the investigation found the right person. My personal opinion is that maybe, especially with a police officer involved, maybe a little more follow through, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and I'm being, I'm softening it a little bit. But am I happy with the investigation? No. But did they come up with the right person? Yes. Right. So the evidence in this case points to one person, or one person only. And we've followed the social media, we've followed the online stuff and all the other media, and it, the reality is the wrong narrative still exists. The wrong narrative is still out there. That they're talking about third-party culprits, and it's all nonsense. One person did this. We know it. We've known it since the beginning. And you want to talk about the investigation? I understand. Look, beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard. We get it. And we can have an honest conversation about whether or not, beyond a reasonable doubt, the threshold was met here. I believe it was. But if you want to talk about specifically maybe the collision, whether or not a collision happened, you can have that argument. I think a totality of the evidence shows, yeah, it happened. But if you want to have like an honest conversation about whether that happened and whether they proved it or not, I think they did. If a juror came out and said, look, I just don't believe in a collision, fine. But when they come out and they say things like, it wasn't 100%, instead of, if it was 99, then you can't convict. Not understanding reasonable doubt, totality of the evidence, not understanding their job. They say they understood their job, but they didn't get it. Or at least that one, I should say.
Right.
So yeah, again, investigation, found the right person. I would have liked a little more follow through, but maybe things will change because of this case, right? You would hope that when investigations happen now, they would have to sort of foresee that maybe a wealthy defendant would be able to purchase the circus, So that's how I see it. So yeah, if you want to have an honest discussion about reasonable doubt, I could probably get on board with that. But the other stuff, she said, this last juror talked about the dog bites. Barrows, she never listened to Hank Brennan's. I mean, Aperture was unprofessional. I mean, look, you say what you want, but you know, you can go after the individual if you want. But Shannon Burgess, he found the chip that put the data, that put her car there. She was the one who drove the car forward 30 and change feet, and then reversed and another 50 feet at a high rate of speed. Even that juror said, she said it. She says she doesn't know what, maybe she hit him, but then he went in the house after with his socks on. I mean, oh my God. He didn't have a shot. There was never a shot here. And so the emotions you hear now is I'm transitioning away from the grief and the disbelief. You know, we're pragmatic about it. We understood that this could happen, but this is not what we expected. We expected a more deliberate jury, I guess, would be the best way to say it.
John, and you know, there are commercials and there are segments in a show. Sure. But sure. I want to extend this segment and give you an opportunity. Again, is there any other area that you would want people to know about tonight? Because I think your voice is an important voice in all of this.
Sure. If you want me to stick around, or you want me to just do this now?
No, we're pushing the commercial. We're pushing it, so we're giving you a little extra time here. I'm sorry for the confusion.
This is your thing, you know. So yeah, no. Look, let's just talk about the family for a moment, okay? Let's just talk about Johnny's family. You know, they've been through a tremendous, and you hear it. You hear people say justice for John O'Keefe. The reality is, we knew, guilty or not, that Johnny's never coming home, right? He's just not coming home. The pain, the damage was already done. He's never coming back, and that pain's never going to change. You know, the O'Keefes, obviously, most know the story now about his Johnny's older sister passing, and his brother-in-law, and how he took in the kids, and you know, that is heroic stuff. That's not run-of-the-mill stuff. That's stuff that when the moment arises, and you feel like, oh, you know, I'd be that guy. I would be that guy. I don't know. You hope you would, but he was that guy. And he was that guy for everybody. That wasn't just his niece and nephew, who he loved and cherished more than anything. That's who he was to all of us. That was who he was to people he didn't know. He was a helper. He was a giver. He was charitable. He was an amazing man. And the O'Keefes need to be left alone to grieve now, right? We're going to put a period at the end of this chapter. We're going to move on. The O'Keefes need to grieve. So anybody who's online still talking, you know, still, oh, peg this, peg that. First of all, it's Mrs. O'Keefe to us, okay? Stop talking about them. Stop looking. You know, people invested their lives in the last 30 plus days or even 3 years or so in this, and they're zeroing in on people on the family side of that bench, and they would constantly go on social media, point things out, and say terrible things. This is a grieving family. It's unacceptable. And we know in the first trial, walking in that door, everybody screamed and yelled, cop killers, cop killers. It was unbelievable. And then they learned, you know, it's bad PR, so we're going to stop that now. And they did, but they didn't stop online. And I won't say the names, but, you know, the niece and nephew that Johnny took in, they're incredible kids. But the kids, they're on social media. You can't stop that. And they see it. And they see the pain of the family, of their grandparents. So when you consider saying something about the O'Keefes, well, Paul, leave Paul alone. It's time to leave him alone. He deserves to grieve. We understand the verdict is in. You know, she's free to do whatever she wants in this life, right? But that pain is not going to stop for that family, or for the friends, or for any of us. And the world is going to miss out on a tremendous individual. And it doesn't change the fact that we know who did it, right? We know who did it. Just didn't get the guilty. Wasn't beyond a reasonable doubt in this jury's eyes. It's unfortunate. And anyway, I appreciate you let me say that.
Yeah. Well, John, I appreciate you coming on. It's not easy, and what you said, everyone heard, and I think that's important. And I'm sorry for your loss of your good friend, and for going through all this and all the pain. John Jackson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Really appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
When we come back, more of our investigation.